If I hadn't opened the door that afternoon, my cat wouldn't have ended up soaked and shaking in the rain later. I think about that more than I should. It started quiet. Too quiet, honestly. I was rinsing a mug, half listening to the kettle hiss, when the doorbell rang, not a polite tap, a long press, like whoever it was had already decided they belonged there. I froze. Then I laughed a little. That stupid reflex when you don't want to feel nervous. My name is Marlowe Bennett. I am 63 years old. I live alone because I chose to. That matters. When I opened the door, my daughter was standing there with her husband, 2 overnight bags, 1 rolling suitcase, shoes already dusty, like they'd been pacing before I showed up. She smiled first. That careful smile. "We came because we found out you bought a country house," she said. "We decided to move in with you, make peace, and leave the past behind." She said it clean, like a line she'd practiced in the car. Her husband nodded beside her. Not friendly, not hostile, just measuring. His eyes flicked past me, already scanning the inside, like the place was inventory. I didn't answer right away. My brain snagged on something small but sharp. I never told her where I lived. Not the address, not the road, not the town. I had been very intentional about that. I wanted one thing in my life that wasn't up for discussion. I felt my jaw tighten. Then relax, I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. That's the part I still argue with myself about. But I wanted to see it. The whole thing. What they were really here for. You don't get truth from people by slamming doors. You get it by letting them talk. They crossed the threshold and stopped. Actually stopped. Her husband's mouth opened, then closed. My daughter's eyes went wide, then narrow, like she was recalculating something fast and badly. I swear, you could hear the silence shift. Even the kettle clicked off behind me, like it didn't want to interrupt. "This is," my daughter started. "Nicer than you thought," I said. "Casual. Too casual." She laughed. "Sharp?" I was going to say cozy. "Sure you were." I took their coats, hung them up, normal things. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Inside, though, I was already counting. Not money. Tells. And just between us for a second, have you ever noticed how people reveal themselves the moment they think you're not as small as they expected? I closed the door behind them. And that's when I knew this wasn't a visit. They stepped inside and just stopped. Not polite stop. Not taking it in stop. The kind where your body pauses before your brain catches up. My son-in-law's eyes moved first. Fast. Couch. Floor. Windows, like he was pricing things without touching them. He didn't even try to hide it. That was new. Usually he pretended better. My daughter didn't move at all. Her mouth opened, then closed. She folded her hands together like she needed something to hold on to. I walked past them into the kitchen and picked up the kettle. "Let it clink a little louder than necessary." "Tea?" I asked, over my shoulder. Not an invitation, just a fact. I was making tea either way. Yeah," my daughter replied. Too quick, then softer. "Sure." Her husband didn't answer. He drifted a few steps farther in. Slow, like he was afraid the place might disappear if he moved too fast. I set 3 cups on the counter. One of them chipped. I didn't replace it. Let him notice that too. "This is," my daughter started, then stopped herself. I waited. Didn't help her out. Nicer than I imagined. She finished, then laughed. Awkward. I mean, comfortable, very comfortable. There it was, the slip. The correction. The lie stacked on top of the truth. I handed her a mug. Our fingers brushed. She flinched like she hadn't expected contact. Her husband finally spoke. "You did all this yourself." I met his eyes, held them. "I live here." That was all I gave him. He nodded. Slow, like that answered more than I meant it to. We sat. Not together, close enough to talk, far enough to keep space. The kettle clicked again, cooling down. Nobody asked how I managed it. Nobody congratulated me. They just looked around, recalibrating. I took a sip, burned my tongue a little, didn't react. Inside, something settled. Not satisfaction. Something firmer. They hadn't come to check on me. They'd come to check the math. My daughter leaned forward first, hands wrapped tight around the mug like it was a prop. Look. Mom, she started, voice soft. Careful. We've all made mistakes. Life's short. Family should be everything. This could be a fresh start for all of us. Her husband nodded along. Right on cue. Yeah, out here. Quiet. You shouldn't be handling everything alone anymore. We can help you out. Help. That word again. Always sounds generous until you ask what it actually means. I didn't react. I let the silence stretch just long enough to get uncomfortable. Okay, I said. How long? They blinked. How long, what my daughter asked. You staying, I replied. Weeks. Months. Permanent. Another glance between them. Quick. Practiced. Well, we thought we'd just see how it goes. She answered, too light. I nodded once. Expenses. Her husband shifted in his chair. We'd contribute. Obviously. To what? I pressed. Utilities. Food. Repairs. He shrugged. We'll figure it out as we go. I took another sip of tea. Let it sit there. And privacy, I added. Rules. Quiet hours. Space. My daughter laughed. A little too sharp. Mom, you're overthinking this. No. I was thinking exactly enough. I set my mug down. I like clarity. Saves problems later. Her husband smiled. Tight. You always did like control. There it was. The edge under the sweetness. I leaned back. No. I like plans that exist. They didn't answer that, just kept smiling. Waiting. And that's when it clicked. Not loud. Not dramatic. Real plans come with dates and numbers. Whatever this was, it came with fog. Christmas, 2025. The house smelled of pine and expensive catering that I had helped pay for. Though no one mentioned it, I had spent months saving for my granddaughter's gift. It wasn't a flashy toy or a gadget that would be obsolete in a year. It was a handmade locket with a photo of us. Something I hoped she would hold on to when I was gone. I wrapped it myself. The corners slightly uneven because my hands were shaking with a mix of excitement and nerves. My son-in-law, Evan, picked it up first. He didn't even open the card. He just turned the box over in his hand with a look of bored pity. Oh, he muttered, his voice loud enough to cut through the holiday music. She already has a designer one from her other grandparents. This is just redundant. Then, with the same casual indifference he'd use for a candy wrapper, he walked to the kitchen and dropped the box straight into the trash. The plastic clinked against empty wine bottles, a sharp, final sound. I froze, my heart dropping into my stomach. I looked at my daughter, Lila, waiting for her to say something, to defend the effort, the love, the me. Instead, she just sipped her wine and laughed. Mom, don't look like that. Don't make it awkward. You know how kids are these days. They like brand names. Awkward. That word felt like a slap, as if my love, my presence, and my sacrifices were just a social inconvenience they had to manage. Later that night, when the house was finally quiet, I pulled the box out of the trash. I found the receipt I'd tucked inside, proof of the hours I'd worked, the meals I'd skipped, and the care I'd taken. I stared at it until the numbers blurred. I realized then that I'd been paying emotional rent for decades. I was buying my seat at their table with my silence, my patience, and by pretending I didn't notice every time they erased me. I was a guest in my own family, one who had stayed far too long. I didn't plan revenge that night. I just decided I was done living in a place where I could be thrown away like yesterday's garbage. I tucked the receipt into my pocket, a reminder of exactly what my silence was worth. I didn't announce anything. That part mattered. Early 2026. I started shrinking my life on purpose. Sold furniture I never liked. Gave away dishes that only came out when I was hosting people who barely looked at me anyway. I kept what worked. Let the rest go. When my daughter called and asked why I sounded busy lately, I told her I was tired, which was true, just not in the way she meant. I used my savings carefully. No big swings, no fantasy version of freedom. I bought modest, solid. The kind of choice you make when you don't want to move again, ever. I picked the Asheville area because it felt quiet without being lonely. People nodded at each other. Nobody asked follow-up questions that felt like inspections. I liked that. When the realtor asked if my family would be visiting often, I paused, then smiled. Not really. She nodded like she understood more than she let on. I didn't explain myself to anyone. Not friends. Not distant relatives. I stopped translating my choices into something acceptable for other people's comfort. That alone felt like a muscle I hadn't used before. The only person I talked it through with was the guy who installed my security cameras. Local, mid-40s. Asked normal questions. Living alone. Yes. Want coverage on the doors and yard? Yes. No pity. No comments about my age. Just practical. When I mentioned my daughter later, he didn't ask why she wasn't helping. He just finished drilling and handed me the manual. That felt good, being treated like someone capable. I unpacked slowly, left boxes open for weeks, took my time choosing where things belonged, and for the first time in years, nobody told me I was doing it wrong. I didn't need paperwork to know something was wrong. Their bodies did the talking. My daughter's purse sat on the chair like it always had, angled just right so the logo showed. Except this one wasn't real. Close. Good fake. I noticed because I used to sell fabrics and trims. Back when I still worked retail. You learn seams. You learn shortcuts. Her husband kept checking his phone. Screen down, face tight. Every buzz landed heavy. They were polite in that brittle way. Too many thank yous. Too much smiling. Like people who know they're on borrowed time. I went outside to refill the bird feeder. Didn't announce it. Just stepped out. That's when I heard his voice. Low and sharp, coming from the side yard. I told you we need more time, he snapped. No. Listen, this is the final notice. We're trying to set up a payment plan. I don't care what it says on the letter. Pause. A breath dragged through teeth. No. Don't send anything yet. I stayed still. Let the feeder hang crooked in my hand. One of those moments where you pretend you're not hearing something so you can hear it clearly. When I went back inside, my daughter was already watching me. That evening, she sat closer than before, voice softer, careful again. I was thinking. She started, stirring tea she wasn't drinking. Maybe it would be nice if my daughter came to stay for a bit. You know, quality time. She misses you. Her husband nodded too fast. Could be good for her. Fresh air, stability. There it was, the pivot. I kept my tone neutral. How long? She waved a hand. Just a little while. We'd figure it out. That phrase again? I looked at her face. Really looked. She wasn't asking for her daughter. She was offering her a peace token, a guilt lever, insurance. I nodded slowly. We'll talk about it. Relief flickered. Not joy. Relief. That settled it for me. Whatever hole they were in, it was deep enough to use a child as padding. They waited until after dinner. Plates stacked. Sink half full. Timing matters to people who want something. My daughter started gentle. We just need a little help until things stabilize. I kept my voice even. I'm not doing that. Her husband leaned forward, elbows on knees. It wouldn't be forever. I know, I replied. Still no. Silence. The bad kind. Then the edge crept in. You have the space. He pushed. You have more than we do. There it was, the math out loud. I stood and grabbed the folder I'd already made. Plain, no drama. I set it on the table between us and slid it open. If anyone stays here, I told them, tapping the page, this is how it works. My daughter blinked. What's that rules? I read them without flair. Shared expenses. Chores listed by name. Privacy respected. No borrowing without asking. No yelling. A firm end date written in ink. Her smile tightened like a pulled thread. Mom, this feels a little extreme. Her husband scoffed. We're family. You're acting like a landlord. Landlords are clearer, I answered. They don't pretend it's love. He laughed, short and sharp. So what? You're just turning your back on us, I'm standing still, I replied. You're the ones trying to push. My daughter reached for my hand, then stopped herself. We didn't think you'd be like this. I closed the folder. Neither did I. Turns out I learned fast. He leaned back. Eyes hard now. You really won't help. I won't be pressured. I said, if that's the same thing to you, then yes. They exchanged a look. The one I'd seen 1,000 times growing up decide. Then punish. I carried the folder to the counter and set it down where I could see it. Ground rules don't work if you hide them. When I turned back, the air had changed. Negotiation was over. The house went strange after that. Not loud, just wrong. Cabinet doors left open. A plate forgotten on the couch. My notes moved. Little things. Petty things. The kind meant to test how much you'll swallow. I noticed my cat first when dinner went quiet. He didn't come when I tapped the bowl. He always comes. Even when he's mad. Have you seen him? I asked. Casual. My daughter shrugged without looking up. Her husband kept scrolling. I didn't reach for the flashlight first. I reached for my phone. I opened the security app and rewound the footage. My blood turned to ice as I watched my son-in-law carry my cat to the outdoor shed, latch the door, and check it twice just as the first raindrops fell. It wasn't an accident. It was a message. I didn't yell. I ran outside, pulled my soaked, shaking cat from the enclosure, and brought him in. Decisions get very easy when someone tries to break what you love. My daughter followed a minute later. Looked at the door. Didn't stop him. Didn't. I sat there for a while with the towel still around my shoulders, rain rattling the windows, the house breathing around me like it always had. They thought they'd crossed a line. They were wrong. They'd shown me exactly who I was dealing with. I put the phone down. Stood up. Locked my bedroom door for the first time since moving in. Not because I was afraid. Because decisions get easier once there's no confusion left. She arrived the next afternoon with a backpack that looked too heavy for her shoulders. My daughter stayed in the car, engine running. Window cracked. She waved like this was normal. Like she hadn't just dropped off her kid early on a weekday with no warning. Hey, Grandma, my granddaughter said, already stepping inside. She smelled like rain and cheap shampoo. Hey, kiddo, I told her, you hungry? She nodded, then hesitated. Mom said just for a few days. I poured juice, sat across from her, didn't push. She talked while she ate. Not rushed, not dramatic, just facts. The way kids do when they think adults need help catching up. They don't live at the apartment anymore, she said, wiping her mouth. The bank people put notes on the door. I kept my face still. What kind of notes? The red ones. Dad said that means final. She kept going. They sleep at Uncle Rob's sometimes, or in the car. They fight a lot. I reached for the napkins, gave her one. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Why did they come here? I asked. Dad put a GPS tracker on your car months ago. Grandma, he's been watching your little red dot move on a map, waiting for you to lead him here. Mom said your new house was public property because you paid for it with money that should have been theirs. That landed heavy. She also talked to your old neighbor, my granddaughter added. The one with the loud dog. She said you'd gone quiet and probably had money. I closed my eyes for a second, opened them again. They practiced what to say. She continued, about making peace. Dad kept forgetting his part. I laughed once. Short, not happy. She looked at me, worried. Are they mad at you? No, I told her. They're scared. She nodded like that made sense. I had one small moment where guilt tried to crawl in. Old reflex. Then I thought about the rain, the latch, the camera. I stood up. You're staying with me tonight. She smiled, relieved, and leaned into my side like she already knew that was true. Clarity isn't loud. It just stops the noise. I brought them into the living room, all three of them. No shouting, no build-up. You tracked my address, I told my daughter. You rehearsed that speech. You planned to stay without asking, and you locked my cat outside in the rain. Her husband opened his mouth. I raised a hand. I'm finished, I added. You're leaving today. My daughter's face went pale. Mom, you can't just, I cut in. This is my house, my rules. I looked at my son-in-law. I have the footage of you locking that cat in the rain, in this state. That's animal cruelty, a felony. I also know about your foreclosure notices. I turned to my daughter. The girl stays here in a warm bed with a school nearby. If you try to take her back to sleep in a car, I'm calling the police and the bank the second you hit the driveway. Your choice to leave as parents who care, or leave in handcuffs. No hugs, no bargaining. I locked it after them and leaned my forehead against the wood. The rain had stopped. My cat curled against my ankle, warm and alive. Here's the part I learned the hard way. Boundaries don't make you cruel. They make you honest. And honesty costs people who were living off your silence. If this story hit close to home, tap like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It tells the platform these stories matter. I stood there a moment longer, keys in my hand, deciding how much contact I'd allow tomorrow. Then I turned off the light and let the quiet stay.